Hey, Henrika Voxhaus here, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate to tinnitus sufferers, that is, those who get ringing in the ears, a potential permanent treatment that you can do in the comfort of your own home. That's right, not just a treatment that works a little bit, but potentially permanent treatment. This is based off of actual scientific studies done in 2011 on rats, and which they say are now entering human trials. And who am I to be telling you this? Am I trying to sell you something? No, I'm just a musician and a media producer who's both suffered tinnitus myself, and I happen to make videos and tutorials already. And I've been researching this subject a little bit, so I decided to share my research with some people on the internet at Tinnitus Sufferers Group, and they asked me to create a video, so here I am. Alright, so I'm going to be both as simple and as thorough as possible, in the hopes that I can get most of you to understand the concepts here, regardless of your background. I need to go with a pronunciation here, so I'm going to go with tinnitus rather than tinnitus, since it rolls off the tongue better. So tinnitus, or ringing in the ear, happens for any number of reasons. Working with loud machinery or music or guns, physical trauma to the ear, birth defects, illness, and the list goes on. The common trait is hearing loss, which leads to the brain trying to fill in the lost frequency range. Now, human hearing works on a range of frequencies, and I'm going to demonstrate this for you here. Here in the program that we're going to be using in this tutorial, I have a frequency graph, and this shows in hertz, this is 50 hertz, going all the way up to about 20 kilohertz, or 20,000 hertz. And human hearing basically covers this whole range. And since this program is designed for music making for humans, basically you're seeing the entire range of human hearing here. So we can actually hear even lower than this 50 here. We can actually hear down to 20 and up to 20 kilohertz. And the frequencies that we perceive as loudest are in the mid-range, around here, between 2 to 4 kilohertz. But what happens with hearing loss is that usually it will be in the upper range here, from around 9 to 10 kilohertz, upwards all the way to 20 kilohertz, the normal upper range of human hearing. Loud music tends to have loud brass sounds and sharp sibilants, cymbals and things like that. On a drum kit, especially played in a rock band, this is excruciatingly loud. Then with machinery like a saw, you'd be exposed more to the mid-range, around that 2 to 4 kilohertz range, and maybe some above it too. So hearing loss will affect a whole range of frequencies, but what we want to find and focus on is the dominant frequency, as this is where the tinnitus will usually manifest itself most. If I was exposed to a lot of cymbal sounds from rock music, like I talked about, even though I have hearing loss in my left ear all the way up to 20 kilohertz, it begins more around 9 kilohertz, where the peak volume of the cymbals is created. So if I move up the scale here, what you're hearing now is a tone similar to the tinnitus, but this is also about the range that a rock cymbal drum would be. I can actually show this to you by loading up a drum synthesizer. Now watch the graph while I hit a cymbal drum. Here we see that it peaks around 5 kilohertz, and what normally happens when you engineer rock music, the engineer tends to roll off the lower frequencies and enhance the higher frequencies. But if I hit it again, you can see that there's a natural roll-off on the cymbal. So what you would end up getting is peak frequencies of above 5 kilohertz, probably between the 5 and 10 kilohertz range. So these frequencies roll off both higher and lower, and our hearing is the same naturally. As I mentioned, we perceive sounds around 2 to 4 kilohertz as subjectively louder, even if objectively they're the same level as a lower frequency sound. And I can demonstrate this by playing 2 different tones for you. First, let's choose one which is around 2 kilohertz. Around here. Okay. Keep in mind how loud that sound is to you, and also watch it on the screen. You can see the volume is where it peaks there, at approximately +6 decibels. Now if I play a tone further down the scale, even around 500, does that sound as subjectively loud to you? And how about at 200 hertz? Now it's becoming much more difficult to hear, even though, as you can see on the screen, it's at the same exact volume. So our hearing volume curve also rolls down in either direction, and what this effectively means is the closer the original offending noise which caused our tinnitus was to this perceived loudness peak frequency in humans, the louder the tinnitus ringing will likely be to us as well. And I've noted that some sufferers have very loud mid-pitch ringing, while others have higher pitches which are annoying but not that loud, and they can often be mentally tuned out more easily. So now that we've touched on the relationship of frequencies and human hearing a little bit, let's move on to the studies themselves. So here's the page at the National Institute of Health, and you can look this up yourself at www.nih.gov/news/health. Well, you can see the URL right here on the screen, and I can also put it in the notes, and you can read all about the details of it yourself. So this talks about the rat tests that they did and how they combined using a tone with stimulation of the vagus nerve. So in the rat test, they were able to eliminate tinnitus just about permanently in the rats using 2 simple elements. First, playing an audio tone which matches the characteristics of the ringing, and second, while playing the tone, stimulating what's called the vagus nerve. And more on what this is exactly in a little bit, but these 2 things are performed together again, and in doing so, they found that the brain could be rebooted or retrained. And the function behind this is something like the vagus nerve stimulation promotes the production of chemicals which help the brain go into a mode where it can rewire itself while being given certain cues like an audio tone. So while I was reading this, the first thing I said to myself was, well, it's been years now, why isn't this accessible to us yet? Why isn't the average person hearing about it? Have they tested this in humans already and it failed? Well, that's pretty doubtful. When it comes to these kind of things, everything always has to go through a certain amount of red tape, whether that be because they want to be thorough or because companies want to figure out how to profit more off our suffering. But being a musician, what they explained in the article wasn't rocket science to me or anything, because creating audio tones is something which anybody with a computer or even a mobile device can do. Now, perhaps you know the frequency stuff already, you know what range your hearing loss is in, and perhaps you don't. Either way, we're going to be able to easily figure out what that is if we want, but it's not strictly necessary to know the frequencies. What's necessary is for us to pick a time when our tinnitus is bothering us sufficiently that we can pick out one or more specific tones in our hearing. We want to be able to hear the pitch of the ringing in our ear or ears. And I recognize that tinnitus is more complex for some than others, so what I want you to do is to focus on the most dominant tone that you hear, and what we're going to do is generate a tone on our computer which matches it. So to do this, we need to download some software that allows us to generate any pitch we want. There are so many of these that I can't even touch the tip of the iceberg, so I'll just suggest one for PC and Macintosh first, which is the one which we'll be using in this tutorial. It's free, just a few megabytes, and you can get started doing what I'm doing almost immediately. Other suggestions for mobile devices like Android and iPhone will follow in the description, and you can suggest your own in the comments as well. I'm using Reaper version 4, which you can download at www.reaper.fm. So at the top here, you'll see stuff like About, Purchase, Resources Form. You can ignore these. You do not have to pay for this program. It's free to download. And you can do so here on the right with this green link. So click that and then go down and find the appropriate version for your operating system. For mine, using Windows 7, most new laptops these days use 64-bit Windows. So you can try that, but the safest if you use Windows is 32-bit, and I assume, I don't use Macintosh myself, I assume the safest is also 32-bit. Even if you have 64-bit capability, 32-bit will still work on your system. So download that, install it, and make sure to include the built-in plugins when it lets you choose your installation options. I already have Reaper installed, so I'm not going to do this myself, but just go ahead and do that and choose the default full install if it has that. I don't remember the exact options, but just make sure you have the plugins there. So once you've done that and you have a good set of headphones handy as well, and a calm environment around you, you should be ready to follow along. It's important to not have any interruptions. So now I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Reaper's interface, enough to be able to get you to be able to follow along with this tutorial. Open Reaper, and if you get a nag window, close that. For me it says buy me because I've been using it for more than 60 days, but you might not get this window directly after you install it. So your screen should now look something like mine. This is the track view. It's the default view of Reaper, and it allows us to create music either by recording with a microphone or via computer-generated sound called MIDI. We don't need to create music, we just need to create one simple note and make it play continuously for a period of time, say for a few minutes. And to create a track, all you need to do is right-click on the blank area to the left here and choose Insert Track. Or from the Insert menu at the top, go down here and choose Track. So again, either you right-click, Insert New Track, or from the menu up top, Track. They both do the same thing. Next, we need to add a plugin which will give us sound, the most basic pure tone. Music software such as Reaper can make all kinds of virtual instruments like guitars, drums, and synthesizers, as you've already seen, but it also comes with very simple tones which sound much like the ringing in our ears. So this is what we want and what we're going to set up. And by the way, the other plugins that I have, like the drum plugins, these don't come with Reaper by default. You need to download and buy those from various other companies. So for now, what we want to do is select FX on the track which we've just created. Open that. And it'll scan your effects, and you'll probably get two windows like this. If you don't get this second window here with a list of effects, simply click Add from the first effects window. And we want to go down to this section where it says Cocos. These are the default plugins which come built into the program. We want this very simple tone generating instrument, and something that fits the bill is Resynth, and that's at the bottom here. So double click that and you'll get a new plugin settings window. And you don't need to mess around with any of these settings. That's completely unnecessary, so we can just close out of this settings window now. Now make sure that the track which you created in the first step is highlighted. You can see if it's highlighted that it's a brighter color. Next, from the insert menu at the top, we're going to create a MIDI track. So this is so that we can program a note to play. So here, select New MIDI Item. Now, since the new MIDI item is blank, we're going to need to edit it. So double click the item, and this will pop up a new window, which is the piano roll. And the purpose of the piano roll is to help us program a sequence of notes, just like those old player pianos that they have in the Old West. It's pretty much something like that. And click on a piano key and make sure that you have sound. Go up the scale a little bit, up to the 5th and 6th octaves, and you should be able to hear something. And if you don't hear anything, we're going to need to sort out your audio. Your audio needs to be routed to your headphones, so make sure they're plugged in. Then go to the options menu at the top, and at the bottom of that menu, select Preferences. Immediately, you should be sent to the device settings, and all that matters is the output device. Mine is set to Microsoft Sound Mapper, and the audio system is set to Wave Out. Usually these are good. I don't know what it would be on Macintosh, but your output device would probably be something like speakers or headphones. So double check that and try a few different things until you get it working, and then return to the piano roll here. So back in the MIDI piano roll, you'll notice that we started off on pretty low notes. In the beginning we were around octave 2 and 3. C2 means it's the C note in the second octave. Play that note and then scroll up until you find the note which corresponds to the loudest pitch of your tinnitus. It may take up to the 8th and 9th octaves, which is Reaper's upper limit, before you find a pitch that matches. Mine was up around 9,000 Hertz, which is near the limit. If you already know the frequency of your hearing loss, here's something that you could do. Open the FX window on the track again, click Add, and from that same Cocos subheading, choose Re-EQ. You should now be seeing a graphical depiction of the frequency range, much like I showed you in the beginning. So what this will do is it'll give us a graphical view of the dominant frequency of the notes which we play in the piano roll. Resize the piano roll window if it's in the way. Move them around until you can see both of them comfortably. Then click and drag your mouse cursor over the piano keys. Do you see the frequency in the Re-EQ window? Let's say that I know the ringing in my left ear is 9,000 Hertz. That's 9 kilohertz. So here at the bottom of the EQ window, you'll see the scale. Keep an eye on the frequency as we move up the piano roll. 9 kilohertz is about an A sharp, I believe. in the 8th octave. But my ringing is slightly higher right now. I've already eliminated the lower pitches on a different day when I originally did this experiment. And that's the thing, you could do this experiment or therapy in passes. Your tinnitus may return after treatments, but it will likely be softer and at a different pitch. This is because we don't lose just one frequency when we lose our hearing. We lose a whole range. My hearing from 9 kilohertz and up is all compromised on my left ear, and the brain is trying to make up for it. And the more of this we retrain in our brain using the vagus technique, the more our brain will learn to finally quiet down. So at C in the 9th octave, I've found my pitch. So now what? I'm going to click on the very left of the piano roll at that note. You see your mouse cursor turns into a pen. Make sure that you're scrolled all the way to the left though. And you can see the border here at the very left. So click and draw a note on the screen and continue holding the mouse until you reach the very right hand side of the piano roll, and then let go. And it might now continue to play, so just hit spacebar on your keyboard, or you can also hit play there and then stop again, and the note should stop. So that's it. So now at the bottom of the piano roll window, we see a button which has 2 arrows which are circling around, and this is the looping mode. So turn looping mode on, and then press play. Make sure that the volume is not going to kill your ears further when doing this. What you want is a nice medium volume that's preferably slightly louder than your tinnitus ringing. Go as high as you're comfortable with. It should drown out all of the tinnitus if possible. And what you can also do is remove the headphone from whichever ear is not affected. This is best. Now, where does the vagus stimulation come in? Some of you may be familiar with vagus stimulation and believe that you need some kind of expensive medical device to do it. This isn't true. You can use your own body to stimulate the nerve. It's just a nerve that runs between your brain and your body, and you can do a couple of different things to stimulate it. I recommend that you proceed with caution here. We don't want to overexert, so if you feel discomfort or lightheadedness, either slow down or stop altogether. If you're reasonably healthy, don't worry though. It should be perfectly safe, and I'm not going to recommend that you do anything you're not comfortable with. There are 2 main methods that you can do while listening to the audio tone, and you're going to do them periodically. By periodically, I mean as repetitively as you're comfortable with. Doing it in any sort of regular interval is better than not doing it at all. And for me, roughly every 10 seconds is sustainable without problems. So method 1 is to hold your mouth closed for a few seconds and blow out against your mouth. You shouldn't breathe through your nose during this, and what you should feel is a light, enjoyable air pressure build up in your abdomen. If you feel pain, again, stop and don't proceed with the rest of this video. You should be able to do this for roughly 5 seconds every 10 to 20 seconds without feeling any discomfort at all. Breathe normally in between. The other method, and it's good to alternate actually between these just to make sure you're doing all you can to stimulate the vagus, is to push like you're having a bowel movement, or like you're a bodybuilder and straining to the point where you have to kind of clamp your butt cheeks. Again, be careful and desist if you become uncomfortable. So what's the point of this, you ask? Well, according to science, you should now be releasing acetylcholine and norepinephrine among other chemicals into your brain. And your brain now needs the audio stimulus, and we're going to want to play it for a few minutes straight and train our brain cells to become responsive to that tone. In the rat experiments, they did this for 20 days, 300 times a day, and obviously we don't have that kind of time here, so We want to see if we'll notice an improvement after just a few minutes. Since scientists can't exactly ask rats how they feel, it takes a lot of testing, usually quite overkill before they can reach conclusive results. You and I, we can objectively tell differences much sooner. And if we do notice an improvement, then it makes sense to use this therapy more repetitively until tinnitus completely disappears. For me, when I first tested this idea, I did 2 sets of 5 minutes at one pitch, then another 2 sets at a higher pitch, and my tinnitus disappeared for the rest of the night, and even up to now is noticeably lower in volume. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. Check your watch or your clock or whatever. Let's just try for 30 seconds and you should get what to do. With the audio set to loop, hit play, and now begin performing the vagus technique. Perform the vagus stimulation, hold, let go. Wait, breathe, and again. Release, breathe. Release, breathe, and repeat. So you got it? Do a few rounds, then stop playback, and listen to your environment again in a silent room. Now remember, you want to do this, every round should be approximately 5 minutes long. Play the tone in whichever ear is getting the tinnitus, and keep the headphone off the other ear, and make sure that the tone is loud enough that it drowns out the tinnitus. Play it for 5 minutes, perform the maneuver in approximately the cycle that I just demonstrated, or however quickly you're comfortable with it. And at the end of the 5 minutes, stop the audio and listen to the room and see if the tinnitus has changed in volume. And for me, when I did it, I did not hear any ringing in my left ear anymore, and it stayed gone for pretty much the rest of the night. It came back after about an hour very quietly. So I'd love to hear if it works for you. And again, I make no guarantees, but I just wanted to share how you could potentially apply this research in the comfort of your own home. So good luck, everybody.